everybody. This is Mike Mills with the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast, and coming to you today with a very interesting topic in that, I deal in real estate every single day, buying and selling and helping people get loans. But there's a whole other world to this that I'm really not very familiar with. And my next guest is going to help kind of clarify and explain to us how there are multiple ways to buy properties and build wealth through real estate that I'm not familiar with. And so I got a ton of questions for him. And he's a best-selling author. He's a real estate coach. And let's go ahead and bring on Mr. Chris Prefontaine. Hello, Mr. Chris.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, man. As we talked about when you initially hooked up before we started going live here, it's 105 degrees here in Texas, but I'm wearing the hoodie. When someone sends you merch, you got to make sure that you represent, right?
Love it. Love it.
So you are in the Northeast. You're in Rhode Island, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm in Rhode Island. Been here since 2008. Grew up in Massachusetts, not too far from here.
Okay. So I'm here in Texas, so we're a good little distance apart. But in the same industry, doing the same things. I'm very curious, how did you get to the place where, you're at right now? You got into real estate probably when you were pretty young and have developed what you've developed. Kind of what was the roadmap to get to where you're at?
Yeah, I started in fall of 91. So I'm coming up on 32 I can't even believe it's 32 years. I really can't. I started building homes. I wasn't a builder. I hooked up with a gentleman that was a builder. And I heard, I'm going to date myself here. I don't even know if you've heard these, but I heard way back then I was traveling to a family company. We weren't in real estate. My family was a welding company, welding supplies. And I heard an old Earl Nightingale tape. He's long gone now, but it was literally a cassette tape. And he talked about the Depression and how nobody would buy or sell. But he had this guy that he knew of during the Depression that went around and put signs on people's lots, sellers' lots, and then attracted buyers and then built a home for them. So that's a cool idea. So we started doing that. We built hundreds of homes after we got it rolling. And we did it all on creative financing without me knowing it. I was naive. I was in my 20s. And I said to the owner, you'll wait till the house is built and sold. I said to the contractors, you'll wait until the house is sold. Everybody waited till the end.
Yeah.
I did that all the way till 95. 95 till 2000, I built a brokerage. Real estate brokerage. Was never a broker. Sold that to Coldwell Banker in 2000. That was a good experience.
Okay.
That led me to coach throughout U.S. and Canada realtors at the time, not investors. And that led up to the crash of 08. And I had my own investments going at that time, obviously, and that's what got me in the crash. So the crash was miserable for me. It's the beginning of one of the books I wrote, but the financially, mentally, everything. But coming out of the crash, I said, what the heck are we going to do to be in real estate if we even want to deal with it? Because I was spent. And It was how I operate now. It was only buying without banks, without using my money, without pledging credit, because I had none at that time. And that's how this whole thing was born that I'm doing right now.
So you mentioned the crash, and I've gone and watched some of your stuff and some of your talks that you've done over the years, related to the coaching and the business. And one of the things you bring up from time to time is the crash and how that kind of reshaped everything that you did. And especially, I think it's very apropos these days because what we're experiencing right now is not what happened in 2008. And anybody that wants to compare the two is just ridiculous because
I agree.
The two things that we're going through, whether you want to call it a recession if we're there yet, or whatever the financial crisis is occurring, back then it was specifically related to real estate, and it was specifically related to loans given out on real estate. Today, it's not. There's many other pieces to the puzzle that are causing issues now. But one of the things that I always heard you say, and I think is important, is coming up with the resiliency inside of you to be like, look, this happened, but there's nothing that I can do about it. So the only thing that I can do is react, and I can try to reshape my business accordingly and not just try to throw in the towel and say, oh, this is too hard. Can you speak a little bit about that? Just what shifted in your brain to realize like, hey, I just got to muscle through it?
A couple of things come to mind when you ask that. One is the direct answer is I had no choice. Like we went from I don't know if you heard the story, but we went from a beautiful 2.5 acre property here in Newport, Rhode Island, overlooking the harbor, which is impossible to get in hindsight, to a 900 square foot bedroom apartment for $900. That's what we had to do. So it was a humbling experience. But then I said, okay, it was miserable. I didn't want to stay there. So I had to rebuild. I had no choice but to let go. But I don't want to act like that was easy. It took 4 years.
Yeah.
February.
It's never easy. There's nothing. Yeah. None of that stuff is easy.
No. And it takes longer than you think, like anything else. Right. So February of 8 to February of 12, I was toast. And the only thing that got me out of it, and I said this to one of my clients this morning because he was whining about something, and I hit him with a message. I said, look, and basically I was trying to tell him is your problem is not like as significant as you think. And how I realized that was I flew to a gentleman I looked up to business-wise, and I did this in 2012, about January, February. That's what got me out of it. And I told him I was whining and telling him what I went through. He laughed in my face and started to list all the things he's been through. He was like 20 years my senior.
Yeah.
And it made my stuff look like nothing.
Right.
And basically told me to get out of my way, get my own way. So I started back right then.
Yeah. There's always this this thing out there. And there's two sides of it, because I've heard this said before, where the worst thing that's ever happened to you is still the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Right. And your reaction to such is yeah, like I understand the emotion behind it and where you're at with it. But at the same time, there are way worse things that could happen to you. And as long as you still have your health and you're still breathing, then you can fight back and get what you want. But, the minute you let your brain decide that you're not going to try anymore, that's when you lose. And I really think that that's, a lot of agents these days, especially in lenders and all of us in the, what I would call inside the box world, they're struggling with that. And, sometimes when you have these market resets like we've had recently and what you experienced in 08, it kind of culls the herd a little bit, right? All the people that were in the business that never had to work, their phone just rang, they did all these things, they are getting out because they can't sustain, right? They can't keep going. So now one of the things, because of the way the world has changed in the last 12 to 24 months, that people get into, which you yourself are, is coaching has all of a sudden exploded. Everybody's a real estate coach. Everybody's is going to tell you how to do this stuff. So you yourself are a real estate coach in a different way, obviously, because of the method you guys use. But tell me about that journey and what your thought on coaching is.
Yeah, so in 2014, we live in Newport. I said Newport County has a war college here, so Navy. Gentleman reached out to me and said, look, I've done 3 tours to Afghanistan. This kid was like in his late 20s, early 30s, and he'd already been through all this. And he said, I'm done. I'm going back to civilian life. I heard about you. Could you coach me? I wasn't coaching it, but because I coached in the past, I'm like, yeah, it'd be cool to do this in the investment world.
Yeah.
So he came to my office, literally. It wasn't like today where most people around the country with us. He was right in town.
Yeah.
So he came in and we did calls together, and I showed him how to get his first 3 properties. And that really got me the itch back again to coach. And then I wrote a little ebook. It was called Eat That Sandwich, was what we called it. It was about sandwich leases. You can't do that in Texas, but you can do it everywhere else. And after that, we sent it to this little list. A friend of mine had this VA company. She sent it out. About 300 people opted in, and we said, oh, that was cool. So we just started building it like that. And that was, I think that first year we did like 10,000 in business. And then the next year we did $250,000, and it's doubled for many years, or at least 25% a year now in the bigger years since then. Yeah. And I just love 2 things. I kind of alluded this to you earlier. I love to help people, but I love to see them do deals. Like there's a big difference between marketing a product and go, good luck, Mike. I hope you can do it. To, they go out in the real world and there's all this stuff that happens. Well, it's supposed to happen. So we tell them ahead of time and we help them through it, and we actually do deals with them in the trenches. That's how I get into it. And that's kind of where it is today.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big separation. I think a lot of times with the coaching world is there's a lot of people that'll tell you how to do stuff. They will, instruct you. They'll give you videos. They'll do all those things. But then when it actually comes down to actually doing it and going through the trenches with you, that's when they kind of disappear a little bit, and or don't have enough to really, skin in the game or experience or whatever you want to call it to be able to really, set you on the right path. So at least, you guys are helping people. Once you explain how your program works, what you guys do, y'all are holding their hand through the process and helping them get those deals, because at the end of the day, the results are what matter, right? It's not the motivation and all the stuff that comes along with it. It's like, what's the bottom line? What can I actually get out of this? And I think that's that sets you guys apart a little bit from what we typically see.
Yeah. I remember, Mike, if I can say this, I remember our first event. I remember saying to my son and son-in-law, hey, we got to get there's 17 students or whatever it was, small. I said, we got to get one of them to do a deal. Like, we're coming up on an event. Like, that was a big deal then.
Yeah.
Now we do, man, I think this month of June, we have under contract with the students, like 10 new properties, right? Like, so it's just a norm now.
Yeah.
But back then it was like, we got to find a deal for one of these 17 people.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all about the deal for sure. And I had a guy on my podcast, I won't say his name, but I was talking to the podcast and I get done. I said, hey, when you sell your product, he's somewhat in my space. I said, well, who coaches him after that? Because you could refer him to us, or do you coach? He said, I don't coach. He said, I can market, Chris. That's why I came up with that when I was telling you earlier. he said, I can market. And I think he was doing like 8 million a year in sales, just marketing product and not coaching. What
Wow.
that does to people like me or you or someone who cares about doing deals is they come to me and they go, I bought these courses, Chris. How many? Like 10 of them. I had some people spend 6 figures, before coming to me. And so you got to get through that roadblock of, hey, it's okay. You had some education. It wasn't your fault. Now
Right.
let's do deals. And it's hard to break through that sometimes with people.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you got to go. It's trial and error with anything
Yeah.
else, right? You got to learn, and you start gauging on people and experiences and what you feel from it and all that. So, I mean, I think that's pretty standard. And when you're looking to try to start something new and you're getting help and advice and you're paying for it, it's just how it works.
Yep.
Now these days, whenever I talk to, at least in my world, whenever I talk to buyers, there's not a lot of people that are looking to invest in real estate, right? Because prices are high. And now this is all perception, now they are, but
Yes.
home prices are high. You see right now, especially in the commercial real estate market, not necessarily, I wouldn't say maybe multifamily, but certainly like office space and whatnot, due to the work from home, you've got a lot of resetting, loans that are coming with some of these commercial properties that are may have some issues in the near future. We'll see. It hasn't happened yet, but there's some stuff that could possibly be on the horizon. But even on single family homes, multi-family units, what would you say to somebody who came to you and said, how am I going to find a deal right now? There's no deals right now because everything's expensive. Money's expensive.
Yeah.
Everything's expensive. How do I find a deal?
This is by far the best time in my 32 years to be in creative real estate. I didn't say conventional, creative.
Yep.
Prior to the crash, as a realtor, I had no clue what I do now. I had no clue about it. So in this market, with the interest rates going up, you just, as you know, flushed out, I don't know how many buyers, how many hundreds of thousands of buyers thought they could buy a year ago now, and they lost hope, right?
Yep.
Okay, so our rent-own program does exactly that. It helps them become waited out for saving more, or waited out to get their credit better, or whatever it is they need time. We put them in homes. That's key. And then on the selling end, there's never been a better time because there's about a third of the properties in the United States that are free and clear. The building I'm standing in today, talking to you, I bought in 2018, free and clear, meaning there's no mortgage on it, and we structured owner financing. You mentioned commercial loans, for example, earlier, and I jotted that down because I have a 20-year loan here with a private party. The rate will never change. And if I had financed this commercially, not only would I have gone through the underwriting that I can't stand, but I'd be up for review every 5 years, typically, right, on a commercial loan.
Yep.
So I'd be bumming right now. I'd be like, uh-oh, my costs are about to go up.
Yeah, because you had a 3% rate, now you're about to go to 9%.
Yeah, that's to your point, it's gonna cause headaches. Well, not in the creative financing world. So just understand that when there's chaos, like when COVID first hit, any change in the market, when constantly changes anyway, we know that, then creative real estate is key because they need you. They need a guide. So we are busier than ever. I predicted it when things calmed down a little bit from the craze, and now our community is going crazy with deals. It's awesome.
So, all right. So tell me then, since we've said it several times now, this creative financing side of things. So give me a couple of examples. Now, I know you'd mentioned one that I'm in Texas that you can't do, and Texas has a few different laws than a lot of other places. But tell me a little bit about, what type of creative financing you're talking about, what options are available, and just an overview of kind of how some of them work.
Yeah. First of all, let me comment on the Texas thing. So why is it that you can't do sandwich leases in Texas? I would render it a guess that someone screwed it up, meaning they did something wrong, right? When investors try to push the envelope, it screws it up for everybody else. So it is what it is. The other two methods, other than sandwich lease, are my favorite anyway, because you own it instead of controlling it. And that is number one, owner financing. I mentioned it on this building. Okay. Why do I love free and clear properties? Because I structure principal only payments, Mike. And in your business, this is like, so there's no interest. Monthly payments of principal only. We did $1 million home in down Cape Cod this way. We've already exited out of it, but it was a realtor, get this, in Boston, who couldn't sell it and sold it to us, owner financing. That meant I paid her $2,500 a month for her $1 million property. It was $945 purchase. And it was principal only. So $30,000 a year coming off of principal. That's owner financing. You just don't have a bank, just like here. I just pay the owner. The second way, and this is really cool in this market to your earlier question, is subject to existing loans. So unlike the free and clear owner who's in good shape financially, this is the complete opposite. Usually they're hurting. Like they have little equity, they got job transfer, they have little equity, they got new orders in the military, whatever, and they can't sell it without coming out of pocket. These loans are sitting out there with like 2.25% to 4.5, let's say, interest rates. We're buying properties now with those old rates, and the loans are staying in place, and they're staying in the owner's name. So I'm never signing personally, although I own the house.
Okay.
That is a key strategy right now.
Okay. So, all right. So on the owner financing, I mean, I'm familiar with it to some extent because people do it not to say all the time, but we know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find an owner financing deal? Because that's one of the things I get calls from people all the time that don't have enough cash or, can't find something in their price range or whatever the case may be, or their credit's bad. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what if we do owner financing? And I'm like, well, it's not that you can't, but from the way I understand it, the way I explain it is, number one is you got to find a person willing to do it. So that seems to be number one challenge.
Yep.
The second thing is you have to be very careful how you drop the contracts, because in most cases, you can't just draw it on a napkin, because it's going to heavily favor the owner of finance who's financing the deal, unless you draw it up appropriately to where you're at an advantage, or at least on equal footing in that situation. So how do you go about finding the deals, and then kind of generally structuring them to some extent?
Sure. So couple ways. We have virtual assistants, or the student can call themselves, but I strongly recommend they hire a virtual assistant, kind of knows the lingo, so they can sift through the sort of the non-qualified people. And what does it mean?
Right.
It means they're calling expired listings that didn't sell in the market.
Okay.
They're calling for rent by owner, for sale by owner. They're calling, and those usually give enough leads, by the way.
Gotcha.
But if they are aggressive, or they want to expand how many deals they want to do, they can go to the niched lists. Like I just said earlier, one would be my favorite: free and clear absentee owner. So they own a property down the street, but they don't live in it as their primary.
Right.
Really cool leads right now.
Okay.
So now, if you are debt free, this guy here, he was advertising on a busy road that I'm on here, owner financing, and he had realtors giving him offers. He said, no, I don't want to sell it, because he had tax issues.
Yeah.
And estate planning issues.
Okay.
There are people like that. You just have to know what pond to fish in. And those are 6-figure deals the way we exit them. We can talk about that later, but those are 6-figure deals every time you find one.
Really? And then what you guys do to kind of exit out is you just figure out a way to sell it later? Is that kind of the idea? Or
we sell, and we can go like basic and advanced. So I'll give the basics. I just mentioned options. Mm-hmm. Our basic exit model on residential is rent to own.
Okay.
Most educators will teach rent to own, and they'll even tell you, don't care about the buyer, don't care if they're qualified, just stick them in the home, take a deposit. If they don't qualify, they leave, you do another one.
Right.
That might be okay for them legally, but it's morally and ethically, it stinks.
Yeah.
So my son, Nick, it's awful. So my son, Nick, is the buyer specialist. They have to come in and get qualified, Mike. They can't just get in a home. They're not a renter or wannabe. They are a buyer that went to someone like you. You qualify and said, sorry, you need 2 years seasoning, or sorry, you need more down, or sorry, your credit has to improve. Those are the 3 things.
Right.
And post-COVID, by the way, as you know, record number of people starting their own business. Now they need 2 years seasoning.
Yep.
But they came from corporate America. They got money. They got credit. Those are great rent-to-own buyers. So our exit is they come in the property, they put a down payment down. They were ready to buy.
Yeah.
That's payday 1 for us. That's a non-refundable down payment. Then payday 2, while they're in the property getting mortgage ready, we call it, there's a spread between what I'm paying the owner or a loan and what they're paying me. That little delta, that's our payday 2. Every month it's cash flow. Yep. And then our payday 3 is really cool because of all the principal pay down. While we're doing that and they're paying it, that accrues to us, of course, and then any markup in the property. So when I said to you earlier, they're very lucrative. Our 3 paydays around the country for all the students, West Coast, East Coast, runs a low of like 40, 45 grand. It could be low depending on price, all the way up to $250,000. We're working on a deal in Maryland right now that could be almost $500,000 on a cash out. Wow. So these are very lucrative deals. I'm not saying you do 10 of these a month. I'm not saying that. I am saying
we got to find it.
Skill set. You can.
The challenge I would imagine, what you guys do and what you've mastered, is finding those deals, right? Just with anything else, because once you know the structure of how to put something together and duplicate it over and over again, then that's okay. But that's still, it's kind of like I tell realtors all the time. That, when you go to real estate school and you go take your classes and go to all the courses and all that kind of stuff, that you're learning the contracts and you're learning, how to structure, the amendments and all that stuff, but you're not learning how to find deals, right, or clients to, right, to sell real estate to. And that's really the game. The game is not, structuring the deal necessarily. The game is finding the deals to be able to structure.
You nailed it, because that is if there was a harder part, it's that. Once you get a property like that, filling it with a buyer, as you know, we have a mortgage broker in our community. He's been doing it for like 20 years. He said that you can tell me what yours is. He said, Chris, right now, about 17 to 20% of the people that are coming in my door to apply are getting qualified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
That's
okay,
accurate.
well,
Yeah.
what about
I
the other
wouldn't say that.
83%? I'm not saying they're all good for us, but a portion of them are.
Yeah. Well, and
You're
it's a
close.
number of reasons. It's not just credit. It's like you said, it's
Yeah.
their income because they haven't been self-employed. And really, one of the pushes that's happening in the mortgage industry right now as a whole, when you look at different companies, is that we are actually, I don't say lobbying, but we're definitely pushing for guidelines to loosen up a little bit. I mean, foreclosures are the lowest that they've ever been. We're under 1%. These, when I see everything like all the foreclosures are coming, I'm like, where? Because nobody's even behind on their mortgage right now, or very few people. And you've got to have a certain percentage, 1 to 2 to 3%, and especially now that the federal government essentially has told the banks that all these forbearance programs, when people that can't pay their mortgage are being allowed to stay, and that would help open up our supply issue if we just had a few more foreclosures. But everything's either being subsidized on the buyer side, or it's being too strict on the loan side, where if you don't fit in the box, then you're going to have a really hard time getting a loan.
Yeah, it's tough. I went. It's against my my practice to go get a loan, but in 17 I got a small one, like 17% LTV for a cottage I wanted to tear down and where I live now in a new house. And my wife said, "Wow, that was like brutal." And it wasn't. It's worse now. But she said that was brutal. How do other people not in the business get through that? Because we're in the business. I said, I know this is why I don't use banks. It was crazy.
Yes. Yeah, we don't make it easy. We did have a question here. So Conrad wants to know, how much are you requiring as a down payment on your rent to own deals?
Yeah, great question, Conrad. If they go to our site, they'll see a video that explains rent-to-own, and that video tells them they'll need 3 to 10%. Now, that assumes a lot. That assumes that job's going to fit. That assumes we like the longevity in the job. All that criminal, sexual harassment, all that gets checked.
Yeah.
Having said that, they can get in the door with 3, but they won't stay at 3. Cannot. We don't say, okay, because you're eventually only going to need 3% down, you're good. We want to build them up to 10 throughout the term, or if it's a jumbo, 20.
Yeah.
Now it does 2 things. It puts them in a better position for qualifying with someone like Mike, right?
Yeah.
And invest them in the home more and more and more as a buyer. They're not going anywhere if they have all that. And third, for you as an investor, it improves your cash flow.
Yeah. 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 Well, you have the money coming in that you can do stuff with other things. All right. So we talked about the owner financing. I wrote down, tell me a little bit more about, because again, I'm ignorant on all this stuff. Tell me a little bit more about subject to.
Yeah. So sub 2, again, is more for people on the other side of the coin. They need relief. Like, I can give you example after example. Let me talk about one deal. I think it's always better to give an example.
Yep.
So we did a deal here about an hour away from here, because we still do this with our family, not just coaching people. And it was a divorce situation. They slipped behind, I think it was 2 payments. I think they watched HGTV too many times. They had like all credit cards maxed out because they rehabbed it.
Yep.
Nice home, nice area, nice community. Realtor had on the market, couldn't sell. I think it was on for like 4.25. They owed around, I'm giving you rough numbers, kind of the deal in front of me. They owed around 375, I think it was. We bought it for exactly the loan balance plus the 2 months of arrears. And we didn't do that till we found our buyer. It's another conversation we can have. So we're never out of pocket. The seller's name to this day is on the mortgage. That's how it works. It stays in their name. But we bought the home, regular closing. And if anyone's been to a closing table, most of the listeners probably have been, where on the settlement statement it says the new bank that's bringing the money to the table, it just says subject to existing loan with the bank and the existing balance at that time. That's what you're buying the property for. So our deposit, quote unquote, was the 2 months of arrears that we had.
Right. Okay. Okay. So when you say you said we could talk about the found buyer, tell me about that.
Sorry, which context did I give you?
Well, you just said we can talk about it a little bit more, but you were talking about you found your buyer because
sorry.
Yeah.
All of our deals, so all our contracts are in our platform, right? All of them, all the legal contracts, they improve as we get better and better. All of them say these deals are contingent upon us finding our tenant buyer first. Now, with a deal like that's underwater like that, there's obviously a rush. You can't go, I'm going to take 4 months because they'll get foreclosed on. But so there's a fine balance. And when you get more experience, you don't have to put that clause in. But when you're brand new, you want the clause in that says, when I find my tenant buyer, then I'll start the payments.
Yeah.
We found a tenant buyer with a payday one. She's an attorney, by the way. It's unbelievable what stories you help people with. She went through law school and got her credit beat up. So she came to the table with $41,000 on this house. It's like $425,000 house. non-refundable. We had to pay $4,100 in arrears to close the deal, plus some transfer tax. So let's just say $6,100.
Yeah.
But we got 41. So we're already ahead of the game walking in the deal. She's still in the house to this day.
Wow. Wow. So you actually go out before you agree to anything, or I guess you make offers, but get contingent. You'll actually go find somebody who's going to buy it first, because then you're covered on both sides, basically.
Yeah. Remember what we said to your point earlier, you nailed it when you said, remember that it's easier, it's harder to get the properties, but when you go to sell them, I'm telling you, the floodgates are open. You have to actually sift who the renters are and the ones that are going to waste your time. Because 80% of them, no matter what you say in the ad, they call you and go, yeah, I was just looking for a rental. No, it's rent to own. You are committing to buy this property. Well, that other 20%, you stay busy. I'm telling you, hundreds of calls. Crazy.
Wow. So the people on the other side that are trying to buy in that manner, they're in abundance. It's just finding the properties to get
It's the 80% that can't get qualified, right, conventionally, but then sifting through those 80% to find the 20% that are good for rent to own.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you still got that, which again, that's legwork as well, right?
Yeah.
I think, with stuff like this, there's always, when people see the short videos or, read through maybe half of a book or a quarter, which we'll get to your books here in a second. But whenever they do that, I think there's this thought, like everybody's looking for the easy way. Like, oh, if I just do this, I'm going to get there and I don't really have to try or work very hard. But there are ways to do lots of things, but there's always work involved, always. And, whether it's finding the deal, finding a house that will fit what you're looking for, or whether it's sifting through 300 people that want to be your buyer to try to figure out who's actually going to be a qualified, dependable, somebody that's going to end up paying their thing that you're not going to have to, switch out in a little while. I mean, that really is the core of what we're doing, or what you're doing is, it's not it's kind of like, someone says, why would you tell everybody this secret method? It's like, no. We tell them things because nobody's actually going to do it. Like you can say stuff all the time and give your secrets, but to find someone that'll actually go through and complete it, that's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah. Look, I say this all the time, Mike. I'll say two things about that because you're spot on again. Entrepreneurship is hard. I don't care what you're doing. It's harder than you think. And then real estate in general, creative real estate is very lucrative. I just said the numbers that are in our community. But I never said it was easy, right? So why do some people come in and do a deal in 32 days and some people take a year and then everyone else in between at all different times? Why? The same course material is taught. We have a same foundation platform. Everybody goes through it. Well, what is it then? It's all this. It's all the mindset piece. It's all the struggle that you said. It's all the challenge. And you will be frustrated doing it.
Yep.
So what you got to do is you got to surround yourself with either a person or a group, or in our case, a whole community, the Wicked Smart community. So you can go to them and go, hey, Mike, I had this. Yeah, it's normal. Just do this, this, and this. You need that. It's not even a question anymore. You
got to put the support around you at bare minimum, just to reassure you that this is normal and it's okay. And this is what everybody goes through. And you're going through challenges that have always been there. And nobody ever said it was going to be easy. It requires work on just like anything else, 100%. And there is no get rich quick, no fast scheme that's going to take care of it. You have to work, and whatever it is, but you have to work. Conrad had another question. He says, on sub 2 deals, since the seller stays on the loan, do you have a deed transfer? And if so, how do you avoid a due on sale by the lender?
Yeah, Conrad, the most asked, like literally on interviews today and yesterday is all I got. So here's the deal. And please, please, please understand, for the disclosure, that I am not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm not giving you advice. I'm telling you what we do. Right. What we do at the advice of our attorneys. And then I want to talk about attorneys, if you can remind me, Mike, because this is so important to do this right. We want to make sure that we purchase the property one of two ways, Conrad. We either do it with a land contract, contract for deed, which means the deed does not transfer. It goes into escrow. You get the same end result to own it. Most of ours, however, are transferred, and we put them, we name them in a trust. And the trust is, if it was Mike's property and Mike needed financial relief and it was 123 Jump Street, it would be the 123 Jump Street Millis Family Trust. Why? Again, not legal advice, just how we're told to do it. We do it because in 1982, the Government St. Germain Act was passed, and that allowed families to transfer properties without triggering due on sale for trust and estate and planning reasons. So that's why we do it. It's never happened to me where anything got foreclosed, because what do banks want? Which I know Mike knows all too well.
They want the mortgage paid. That's it.
Pay the mortgage like you said you would when you bought the property. If you go late, you can expect to be someone banging on your door.
Yes.
Now, the thing I want to say about the attorneys, this is important. We had a student, we do calls for students, like we're in the trenches, right? I had this student go to Israel for a trip, and he said, oh, Chris, what am I going to do? I get this hanging deal. I said, I got it, because I'm his coach. I coach the higher level peeps. I called 4 attorneys, 4. And one after the other in New Jersey told me, no, you can't do that. And I know you can. So I finally called my attorney locally and said, you got to help me. You got to find me an attorney in Jersey. He found me an attorney to this day who's still with us, who's in 32 states and knows how to do sub-2 contract for the lease purchase. So she closed that deal in about 9 days. 4 attorneys there said, you can't do it. Argumentative with me. You got to find some. It's like calling a divorce attorney saying, hey, can you help me out with this, this criminal matter? No, go to someone who just does it, please, or you're going to get yourself in trouble. And you'll be frustrated because you'll be like, oh, they told me I can't do it. No, you can't. You just need to go with someone.
I mean, we experienced that in our industry to a certain extent. I mean, this is a lesser example of this because, you can do it, but it's just knowing the person that you're talking to knows how to do it. Like I've just had a couple transactions recently where the kids were buying a property for their mom and dad. Okay. And mom and dad are not on the loan. Okay. They're not on there, but the kids are buying a property for them. Well, they went to others and other lenders and said, well, you got to put down 20%. It's an investment property. And no, you don't. You don't have to put down 20%. You can put down 5% and buy it as a primary residence. We just have to demonstrate that your parent, mom, dad, whoever, does not have the ability to buy the house on their own. And if we can prove that, and usually it's done through tax returns or what, income verification, whatever, then you can buy it and you can put down 5%. You can get a primary mortgage interest rate. You don't have to get an investment property interest rate. And you can do that house. We did 2 of those deals this month. Now, the thing about that is like, it's not that you can't do it. It's just, or that I can do something that someone else can't. It's just how, talking to someone who's gone through it and done with it, and whether it's an attorney or whether it's a doctor telling you, that you need surgery when you don't, or whatever the case may be. It's not like you're fishing for the right answer. If you go through enough people and you can't do it, they'll tell you can't. But if you go through enough people, eventually, a lot of times you can find someone that says, no, you can do it this way if you structure it right. Right?
Yeah, your business is no different. You brought it to light because I won't mention their name either, but a national company, whenever they get on the end loan of our buyers and us or our students, they always call my son Nick, and we know it's going to happen. We try to tell them, don't use that company. They call and go, oh, we can't do that. Can't do that. We need this. It's so crazy. And yet if I call, Michelle, for example, our local loan officer, she'd be like, yeah, I'll get it done for you. It's insane to me.
Yeah, you just have to know how to put it together. But even what you were saying earlier about the due on sale clause, one of the things that we experience, and I've talked to multiple title attorneys on this here in Texas, is people ask me all the time about moving a property from when they buy it, because you have to buy it as an individual when you go conventional route. You have to buy it as an individual, and then it's titled in your name, right? Well, if you want to then transfer that title over to an LLC, there's nothing that says that you can't, right? You're moving the title over. But the due on sale clause can play a role, and people get scared of that. And I tell them the exact same thing you said. I'm like, look, if you pay your mortgage and everything gets paid, then nobody's coming to look for anything. Not that it's legal or illegal. It doesn't make any difference. Right. They're not going to dig and try to find. The only time you run into issues when you try to get creative with things that you do is if the mortgage isn't paid. And if the mortgage isn't paid, then the bank's going to exhaust every possibility that they can to get that property back because they want to get their money and they want to recoup. But if it's taken care of and it's paid, then you don't run into those issues.
Yeah, Mike, you said something cool that you said legal and not legal is not the issue. Quick story. So the attorney we use locally, the senior partner is in his 70s now. I've done some deals with him, but he's also our attorney. Mm-hmm. The junior attorney in his office, who's now done deals with us for about 14 years, said to me, I can't do these sub-2 deals because he's brand new. So Richard, the senior attorney, sat him down and he called me and he told me what he told him. He told him, look, this is not a legal or not legal issue. This is simply a contractual issue between the bank and the seller, period. Yeah. And this guy is ultra conservative, and he was schooling the junior attorney. Now the junior attorney closes these like clockwork for us in a trust now, but he had to be educated.
Yeah. You just have to learn. I mean, well, look, again, not to keep saying it, but when I got into the business doing mortgages, right? I was, brand new to the business, didn't know anything from anything, just your standard deals. Well, everybody that was in the business would tell me over and over again, anytime I'd get a deal on condos, right? A condo. They don't do condos. Condos are impossible. They're so hard. They're unbelievable. You can't, and it's like everybody that I worked with was like, oh, just stay away, just punt them, get rid of them. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're just throwing away money? Okay, I don't understand. Well, I got to do one. Right. I got to try one. Yeah. It was the same thing with manufactured homes. Oh, don't do man homes. Man homes are terrible. They're, you can't do this, can't do that. They're so hard to complete, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, but let me try. Let me do one. I did a condo, then I did a man home. And I'm like, Are there differences between a regular, single family? Yeah, of course. And are there like condos you got to deal with HOAs and getting, insurance and documents and budgets and bylaws and all that kind of, yes, those are those things that are hurdles. Okay. And they're a little bit more challenging than something else, but it's not impossible to do. And
Right.
again, you're just throwing money in the garbage because you don't want to take a couple extra steps. And once you know how to do it, and then it's not hard anymore. Now it's just another contract and another deal. And it's that learning curve that just scares the hell out of people, I guess. I don't know, but like we experience that all the time, just on my side of doing regular loans.
One of our top guys in the community is in Chicago. He came from corporate. A lot of them do. They want to escape their job. And he was nervous at first because brand new. So he did his first like 8 deals or 9 deals, sandwich lease in that area. Amassed 3 paydays worth like just over 800,000, I think it was. Very lucrative. And I kept telling him, no, you do sub two. No, you can't do sub two. This lady told me I can't do them. Now he does them. That's all he'll do. It's who you're exposed to. It's simple, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, well, by the way, Texas, if you have a lot of listeners from Texas, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Texas, of all states that I've dealt in, the attorneys there, because you don't do a lot of lease purchase, the attorneys there are very well versed with contract for deed, land contract, and sub twos. Like they do them all the time in owner financing.
Wow.
It's even easier.
Well, so you brought up some of the new guys coming through. So let's talk about your coaching program then in general. So when people come to you and say, hey, look, I'm ready to get started in this. Like, I want to learn how to do this, kind of walk me through the initial steps. Like, how do people come to you? Number one.
Yeah.
Number two is where do you kind of start them, as little babies getting into this world, say, okay, hey, you need to start here. What's kind of the process for somebody new coming into the world?
Yeah, we've refined it. It used to be me getting on the phone with you and just doing deals. Now it's, and it doesn't matter what level they come in at. And when I say level, we call them associates.
Okay.
The students that decide to commit to do deals. And there's either a 1, 2, or 3. No, it's not 1 year. It's 18 months, 24 months, or 36-month contract in which time frame we're going to be revenue sharing on deals as you learn. We're going to do them together. You're going to learn. We're going to get them closed together, and we're going to share in revenue together.
So you guys sharing the revenue on the deals. Okay.
Yeah. So we're in it.
That's great. I think that's great because that means that I'm not just left out floating on my own. Like I got somebody in the trenches with me. I think that's fantastic.
And I promise you, I don't care how good you get at it. You're gonna. Most people go, oh, what do I do now? I don't want to leave you guys. Let's take family. Plus, I ask you a question, so we have a way if they can stick around if they want.
Yeah.
What level they pick, Mike, depends upon how serious. It depends upon if they want to go full time. Depends on resources. Depends on a lot.
Sure.
But the revenue splits will differ. But to your earlier question, they will all start on a 90-day curriculum, all of them. Same 90-day curriculum, same coach brings them through that. And then what they do after the 90 days, there's actually a 6-month up to that too, an extension. After that, they can decide if they want to go to one of the higher levels or not. They might say, you know what? I got it. We have a woman that shows up on almost every week. We have we call it a Wicked Smart sit down. Denise is her name. Shows up all the time, shows up to all events, has taken our course only, never joined to revenue share with us, and does deals. Now, I kid her every time. She probably leaves a crap load of money on the table, but she's doing deals on her own, and it's good for her.
Yeah. She's doing it the way she wants to.
Yep.
On the 90-day deal, on the education part, are you trying to help them find a deal right out of the gate, or are you making them go through the 90 days and saying, hey, let's learn this first so you know what you're doing, and then we'll start working on finding deals?
Great question. We obsess over the metric of time to first deal, TTFD. Again, because that's all we want to do is deals, because then that gets to our purpose of improving their lives and letting them live their life of their dreams. That's our purpose. Yeah. So in the 90 days, do people start to do deals? Some are more and more. It's becoming more the norm. If you look at the entire community, our TTFD is 158 days. So we takes the person took 30 days and takes the person took a year, right? So to be fair, the entire community is 158.
Average. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And it's good. We're getting it down. I want to get it under 120. We're getting there. It's come down dramatically. But the 90 days is meant to lay the foundation. They will start getting on the phone like literally week 2 or 3. So yes, they could in theory do a deal, and some do. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me this part, because you're a straightforward guy. So I'm sure you can't win every time.
That's all we know.
Right. You can't win all the time. You mess up. We all mess up. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. So every deal doesn't happen perfectly. Every deal isn't won. Everybody doesn't make money. Okay. So give me some examples of some hurdles, roadblocks, failures, things that have occurred that you're like, hey, we tried this, it didn't work, or we run into this often. These are challenges you're going to deal with.
We could do Absolutely. And this is inviting myself back. We could do an hour or 2 or 3 show on this one, but let me give you a couple. So
Yeah.
when my son-in-law, Zach, first started, he came from personal training and bartending business, and he was just doing the front end calls like a virtual assistant, just to get his feet wet and give me the leads. Well, he found his first deal. It was not too far from here. And long story short, after we bought it sub 2 from a school teacher who wanted to leave the town. And we found out it had a massive, not small, massive lead problem. We didn't inspect for it. That ended up costing us $32,000. So luckily I teach students, because we teach them no money down.
Right.
But we also teach them set up lines with like Fund and Grow and 7 figures in these companies we have, because there might be a vacancy, because there might be a headache like this.
Right.
And so he talks about to this day, because he said if he was on his own, right, and not with us as a family team or a student with us, he would be broke. He'd be out of business on his first deal.
Yeah.
I've had many like that, but guess what we do after that, Mike? As soon as that happened, we call our attorney and go, hey, how can we avoid that? Well, if you're buying it, then you should have A, inspected it, but B, you can tie it, at least purchase, you tie the owner to anything with mold or asbestos or lead. So we do that. Our agreements change, right? Yeah. So then the students learn from all our crap we went through. There's a chapter in my book it's titled "What Can Go Wrong," and another mentor in our space, his name's not important, said to me, why do you do that? You're going to scare people away. I said, no, I'm going to tell them what's going to happen. So when it happens, they don't panic and they stay with me. That's called trust.
Yeah. I think this is a thought that's dying away, in that, like, when I was growing up, my parents' age or whatever, there was this, don't ever just put up the front, right? Yeah. I wear a suit and tie, and, my shoes are polished, and I say all the right words, and I, do all the right things, and everything works out. And I think that's gone. I think that authenticity and realism is way more important to people than anything else these days. And to be able to go to somebody and say, hey, look, I have this thing that I do, and I do it like this, and this, and it works, and we can make money, and I can show you how to do it. But we also screw up a lot. Okay. We've made mistakes, but the reason that I can tell you how to do this is because I've had all these mistakes and I've messed up many, many times. Now, does that mean I'm never going to mess up again in the future? No, because we always are going to be on a constant learning curve. It never stops. But just to, if anybody's ever looking and say, oh, well, that's part of my issue with like politics, right? Is politicians get up front and they want to tell you all this stuff, I believe. And when you ask them a question, say, well, what about this? Nobody can just say, well, you know what? I don't know that very well, or I'm learning about that, or
something else.
How I feel about it. Or they just twist it away. And that's why people get sick of it. So I think it's so important to be able to be authentic with people, say, no, this is what we do. This is how we do it. But we screw up. We make mistakes, and we're not perfect on it. But just like I can go, if my toilet breaks at my house, okay, I can go and try to fix my toilet. I can go to Home Depot. I can get parts. I can go to YouTube. I can look up reasons and ways to do it, right? But something could occur that happens in the middle of that process where I just, it floods the house, whatever, right? Yep. Or I could have paid the plumber 50% more than what I would have spent with time and everything else to do it, to make sure, because all the experience that he's had in doing that job, I am paying for. I'm not paying necessarily for him to come in and tighten a screw or do whatever. I'm paying for all of his experience for the last 20 years or 15 years or whatever it is to come in and handle that, so I don't have any major catastrophes occur in my house. And it's the very same thing.
Absolutely.
So last thing, you mentioned the book. We got 3 of them here. This is what I got. So tell me about these guys. Let's see if I can get them up there right. We got the New Rules of Real Estate Investing. We've got, I believe this was the first one, right?
Yeah. Well, it was revised during COVID, so it's actually very current. Yeah.
Real Estate on Your Terms, kind of glowing there. And then the last one here is Deal Structure and Overtime. I think this is the most recent one here. So tell me about those guys.
So what we'll do is we'll give them a link just for your tribe, Mike. And then I'll tell you about the 2 they'll get. Wicked Smart Books, wickedsmartbooks.com/Mills. Simple.
Okay.
/Mills. In that, you'll get the Real Estate on Your Terms. That is the more prevalent to what you and I talked about, A through Z, kind of what we do. Will it cause you to go out and make $1 million tomorrow? No. It'll open your horizons to what you can do.
Right.
And then in that, we do throw the deal structure overtime, because that talks about the deals and the nuances behind them and just goes deeper and deeper. I'm big on free. I told you before the show. Free is good because you can do your due diligence before you pick what niche you want to be in. And if it's ours, great. And if it's not, it's okay. Yeah. You can also go to YouTube. I mean, there's over 200 deals we post. We give you the bad, the good. Like Mike, when you ask me, hey, what else went wrong? Go look at it. We tell you what can go wrong. Yeah. There's over 200 there. If you just put Smart Real Estate Coach in YouTube, you'll get them all.
Well, I know you're pressed for time a little bit today, so I really, really appreciate you hopping on here with me and kind of going through all this. And we went through a ton of information in a really short amount of time. But I do encourage anybody that's interested in this, go check it out. Go to their YouTube channel. Go to their LinkedIn and Facebook. Like research it, look into it.
Right.
Just like I did before you came on. I went and dug through some of this and learned some stuff that I wasn't aware of, and I was really interested to get your take on it because. And I really, I just got the books the other day, but I can't wait to kind of hop in there and really kind of dig into that because I do think that in the world of real estate with what we're dealing with right now, there's so many ways and so many opportunities to make money in this world. I mean, the wealthiest people on the planet that we know of right now, the vast majority of them have a great amount of their wealth in real estate. It's just what it is.
Yep.
And so if you want to get to that point, this is something that you need to learn about and get familiar with. And like we said in the beginning, are you going to become a billionaire or millionaire overnight? No. It takes time, it takes work, it takes knowledge, but it is a place where you can be your own person. You can have your own business. You're not subject to some corporate whim, and you can get out there and do something with it. But you need some guidance, you need some help. And that's where guys like you, Chris, come into play to kind of help hold people's hand. And I'll say it again. I love the fact that you guys are partnered up on the deals with people up front, because that gives you a little bit extra, if it's me, it's a little extra warm fuzzy to know, hey man,
I agree.
this guy's in here with me. And if something goes wrong, we're on it together.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more,
So,
buddy. And I really, really appreciate having me on. And thanks for mentioning the books. And you and I can interact again later. I know we're going to do some things together. Hopefully we connect at our events, but love to help anyone in your tribe to go ahead and foray into the industry here.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you very much for hopping on with me today, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks,
And everybody
buddy.
that stuck around, we'll see you soon.